Bleach, the secret god who humbled Yhwach. Please like, share, and subscribe. Episode 11, Broken Sword. Yhwach had a deep understanding in the last match, and after leaving, she summarized herself in the first place. Aspiring to become the strongest swordsman in Rakongai, Yhwach has an almost crazy paranoia about fighting. In her opinion, only constant fighting can break through her limits and break the shackles bound to her. This is also the main reason why she did not hesitate to kill countless opponents with her own hands and tried to use her blood to forge her own fame. The flower of Mao who first came to Rakongai is actually just one of Rakongai's many weak people. Because of an accident, she unexpectedly discovered that she could practice cultivation. After being oppressed all the year round, after killing the enemy by herself for the first time, she unexpectedly fell in love with the frightening feeling in the battle. Every killing and battle made her feel satisfied from the bottom of her heart. In the killing again and again, she slowly became a murderer. With the passage of time, she almost forgot her name. Anyone who has heard of her brilliant deeds will call her the most evil person. However, a few days ago, the mysterious young man who was inextricably beaten with her used the term Yhwach girl to call her. Reminiscent of the other side's face, when fighting, Yhwach couldn't get angry. Because she can clearly feel that the opponent's Ryatsu level is far inferior to her own. In this world of Ryatsu is king, Winohana is the first time he has met Ryatsu, a character who is far behind her, but can even share her role in battle. Whether it's the calmness of the opponent in the battle, or his weird skills that can easily defuse his offensive every time, Yhwach is excited. After meditation, Yhwach can only attribute the reason for its resolution of the offensive to accident. However, the current Yhwach is not a believable man. She decided that she must use the other party's blood to wash away the shame of her failure. After several days of experience and a few deliberate killings, Yhwach once again created a new sword in the battle. Yhwach came prepared, but she has enough confidence to completely defeat that boy. After all, now, only battle and blood can satisfy her. Utilizing her famous, cruel name and some special contacts, Yhwach quickly found the boy's residence without spending much effort. This time, she didn't believe that the other party's luck would be so good. At this time, Yhwach came to a dilapidated courtyard alone. After feeling the looming weakness of Ryatsu on the opponent, Yhwach is already very sure that it must be luck for the opponent to tie her. She unreservedly released all Ryatsu in her body in an attempt to give the other side a slap in the face. However, what made her a little helpless was that her powerful Ryatsu didn't seem to shock her. The tiny Ryatsu in the wall, although like a gurgling stream, was calmly unaffected. "I already feel your faint Ryatsu," I said. "I will defeat you by myself." "Imagine you are covered in blood, that's wonderful." While yelling loudly, Yhwach showed an expression of excitement on her face. Read more at mtlarchive.com. Although Yu Taifeng had a certain degree of psychological preparation, he never thought that Yhwach, who was still a battle mad at this time, would appear so soon. Seeing that he couldn't realize it quietly now, he didn't get angry because of the other party's recklessness. Instead, he unhurriedly opened the small door in the backyard and walked out with the sealed state just obtained in his hand. "It turned out to be Yhwach girl, I didn't expect you to come here so soon," Yu Taifeng said while looking at Yhwach with a smile. "Stop talking nonsense. Last time you escaped, this time you are not so lucky. Take it to death." Yhwach didn't have time to prepare Yu Taifeng. A weird smile flashed on her originally calm face, and she suddenly attacked her with a sword. Hey. Can you be ladies? And what does your expression mean?" Yu Taifeng also didn't expect that the other party would suddenly get into trouble. He turned on all-knowing Almighty to predict the trajectory of the sword attack, and said helplessly. As soon as Winohana came up, she used the new swordsmanship she had just understood. Under the blessing of the powerful Ryatsu, the sharp sword in her hand quickly struck towards Yu Taifeng's face from a strange and tricky angle. Huh? Really understand the new swordsmanship? Yu Taifeng uses Omniscience and Omnipotence for continuous analysis, and remembers every movement of the opponent's sword deeply in his mind. He could clearly feel that the new swordsmanship Winohana used this time was quite different from the last time he fought. In the last match, Yhwach's swords were extremely fierce under Ryatsu's blessings, but they were simply going straight forward, without too many tricks and skills. However, this time, the swordsmanship that Yhwach used had a slightly strange smell in the viciousness. "Good come." Yu Taifeng couldn't help but praised after blocking a sword. Yhwach was not distracted by the compliments of her opponent. At this moment, she was completely in the state, and she just wanted to use the new swordsmanship she had just understood without reservation. She seemed to have seen that the boy in front of her had fallen into a pool of blood covered in blood. When Yhwach thought of this scene, her eyes were a little red at this moment. Fighting. Kill. Blood. Yhwach felt that she hadn't been so excited for a long time. The metal collision sound of the sword and soldier colliding sounded again and again. In just a few seconds, Yhwach has made a dozen swords. Every time she took out the sword, she completely poured the Ryatsu from her body into the entire sword body. This time, he had full certainty, letting his opponent fall under his sword. But as time passed, Yhwach began to doubt life a little bit. Obviously, every time she took out the sword, she carried a huge amount of Ryatsu. However, the young man in front of him was not only able to easily resolve her sword moves time and time again. What made her a little bit unbelievable was that after the opponent had resolved her own sword move, she was able to use the same sword move to counterattack. What kind of monster is this? How could his learning ability be so strong? Although Yhwach was shocked in her heart, her whole person became even more excited. The boy in front of him seems to have completely become an interesting prey. Because she has a feeling that he is probably as good at learning as himself. The kind of person who can learn quickly in battle and apply the newly learned skills cleverly to actual combat. Facing such a strong opponent, Yhwach won't waste every minute and every second of the battle. Yu Taifeng has resisted the opponent's attacks time and time again, and he is very clear at this moment who has turned on omniscience and omnipotence. This battle between herself and Yhwach has reached a deadlock. However, it is not difficult to break the current deadlock. Or, the opponent directly exploded out of the massive Ryatsu that was 10 times 100 times the current one, and completely suppressed himself on Ryatsu. Or, she can see through every attack of her own, find the flaws in it, and directly kill herself with a single blow. However, Yu Taifeng knew very well that neither of these two possibilities existed. Although, he can know through omniscience and omnipotence that Yhwach's Ryatsu level is steadily increasing. But this growth rate is not enough for her to have a massive amount of crushing Ryatsu in a short period of time. Yhwach is certainly a genius who knows how to fight, but after all, she does not have the ability to open up. As for seeing through every counterattack one's own offensive, it is even more impossible. Because even as a kendo genius, Yhwach doesn't have the ability to foresee the future. After feeling the level of Ryatsu in his body, Yu Taifeng decided to end the battle. After experiencing the breathing method of all things for a while, Yu Taifeng quickly avoided the sword that Yhwach struck again. He directly turned from defense to offense, and quickly swung his sword to shoot. I saw the sealed state waved in his hand, unbiasedly hitting the sword blocked by Yhwach. Crack. A crisp sound appeared on the iron sword held by Yhwach. At this moment, the blade of Yhwach's saber was directly broken into 2 pieces. Episode 12, High and Few, Hard to Find a Friend. As the sword in Yhwach's hand broke into 2 pieces, the frantic expression on her face was completely frozen. At this moment, Yhwach wondered if she was dreaming. She couldn't believe that the sword in her hand was cut directly by the opponent. Let's stop here today. Yu Taifeng said calmly while looking at the shocked Yhwach. How could this be? It's impossible. Yhwach said idiotically, looking at the truncated sword that fell on the ground. The texture of your iron sword is too bad, a fluke, just a fluke. Yu Taifeng didn't want to expose his secrets. He casually found a reason and tried to prevaricate it. Let's go. I won't do anything against unarmed people. After hearing the other party's words, Yhwach wondered if she had heard her wrong. From the bottom of her heart, she regarded this powerful young man as a prey. She did not expect that the situation on the scene would be reversed because of her saber being cut off. I went directly from a hunter to a prey. The words the boy had just said made Yhwach feel a deep humiliation. This clearly means to look down on her. Unless you kill me. Otherwise, I won't let it go. I can continue to fight. Come. Let us enjoy the joy of fighting together. At this moment, Yhwach shouted to Yu Taifeng in a paranoid and fanatical tone. After that, he directly waved his fist and rushed in the direction of Yu Taifeng again. Even if my sword is gone, I can defeat you with my fist. Yhwach screamed madly and released all Ryatsu in her body. Because she wants to devote herself to and enjoy this battle. What's wrong with no weapons? As long as you can fight, even if you are unarmed, you must fight to the last minute. Read more at mtlarchive.com. As long as she is not killed by the opponent, then she can continue to fight. Yu Taifeng's extraordinary fighting talents made Yhwach sickly addicted to it. Because it has been a long time since there is no opponent who can make her so excited. Under the blessing of all-knowing and almighty, Yu Taifeng looked at the fist waved by Yhwach at this moment, swayed his figure at random and easily avoided it. Stop it. This is a meaningless battle. Yu Taifeng kindly reminded him while quickly avoiding the attacking fist. You are strong. Deserving to be my opponent. Even with a fist. I can beat you too. Due to the excitement of Yhwach, the Ryatsu exuding from her body unexpectedly became a little frantic. She was always mad during the battle, and now she is more like a wounded beast. Although Yu Taifeng is not a wicked person, he is definitely not a good person. He looked at the crazy Yhwach in front of him, and directly poured all the Ryatsu in his body into the sealed state in his hand. then directly towards the direction of Yhwach, swing out with all his strength. At this time, Yhwach, blessed by the huge Ryatsu, has quickly arrived in front of Yu Taifeng. She looked at the sword that the other party was swinging, and didn't make any evasive movements, but instead blocked it with her arm abruptly. A loud metallic sound rang from Yhwach's arm. Although she was unscathed in blocking the blow, she was also knocked back more than 10 meters away. This scene was seen by Yu Taifeng, but he did not show any surprise. Because in the Shinigami world, any battle is actually a duel of Ryatsu. Whether it is Soul Society or Hueco Mundo, the bodies of all creatures are actually composed of souls. The higher the density of Ryatsu in the body, the higher the Ryatsu. The benefits of Ryatsu high become self-evident. Although Yu Taifeng has the system now, his Ryatsu level has reached a bottleneck. This is also the main reason why he has been trying to break his own shackles through combat, trying to increase the density of the souls in the body. On the other hand, Yhwach, although she is now barehanded, her Ryatsu is still much higher than Yu Taifeng. It is not difficult to understand that Yu Taifeng did not cause any harm to Yhwach after swinging a sword with all his strength. Because whether it is the density of the soul in the body or the level of Ryatsu on the body, Yu Taifeng still has a considerable gap with the opponent. The reason why he was able to tie the opponent's hand was only because he relied on the omniscience and omnipotence and the level of kendo that was far higher than Yhwach. Since we can't help each other, let's stop here. Yu Taifeng stretched out his hands somewhat helplessly, and said. A strange look flashed in her eyes when she looked at Yu Taifeng, who took the initiative to throw out the olive branch. At this moment, she has recognized Yu Taifeng from the bottom of her heart. The reason why she went to fight in an almost crazy state was that she had been enjoying the fun of fighting. Now, it's finally hard to have an opponent who can be inextricably beaten with himself. Deep down in her heart, Yhwach is actually very happy. Hi and Hugh, hard to find a friend. Although she has not communicated with the boy in front of her in a real sense. But after these two battles, Yhwach also seemed to see some of her own shadow from the opponent. Of course Yu Taifeng didn't know that he had already received the other party's approval. He didn't have the time to consider those messy things. After all, this was the Soul Society that was perilous. Even if he has the system and omniscience and omnipotence, no one can guarantee that something will go wrong someday. Only by constantly getting stronger is the foundation of one's own life. Winohana looked at the boy not far away, and put Ryatsu, which she had released, into her body. If I hadn't accidentally broken my sword today, I wouldn't have let it go so easily. At this moment, Yhwach has completely lost the crazy look just now, her face is as calm as water, and she coldly said to Yu Taifeng. Episode 13, Siege. When this abrupt applause suddenly appeared, Yu Taifeng and Yhwach followed the voice and looked over. At this moment, I saw a tall and strong man looking at the two with a smirk. Yu Taifeng naturally doesn't know who he is. However, outside the woods not far away, slowly began to gather more and more soul queens. He also guessed that these guys must not simply watch the excitement. It's really wonderful. After applauding, the strong man took the lead to walk out of the woods not far away. When the other Luhun saw the Brawny's actions, they also picked up the weapons in their hands and began to gather. Unexpectedly, among all Rukongai, the most ferocious and extremely evil person would have an unfavorable opponent. It's really rare, the strong man said loudly, with a funny smile on his face. Matsukawa. What do you mean? Yhwach looked at everyone with a cold expression, and said disdainfully. Yeah. Little baby, the more you are like this, the more excited I will be. Why don't you give my brother a squeeze, and then come home with me? He. After hearing what Yhwach said, the brawny man was not only not angry, but said with a wretched smile on his face. After seeing this scene, Yu Taifeng curled his lips helplessly, then turned around and left, and said leisurely, you guys are busy first, I'm going home to rest. Although the group of people in front of them is pretty good, Yu Taifeng doesn't treat them as the same thing at all. And he also believes that with Yhwach's skill, these guys can be solved at will. Smelly boy. Stop it. Are you her friend? The strong man in the lead screamed at Yu Taifeng. Yu Taifeng, who was going to go home for some insight, turned around and looked at the strong man coldly after hearing this sentence. When the strong man saw Yu Taifeng's eyes, he took 2 steps back subconsciously as if he had fallen into an ice cave. Just as he was about to say something cruel, he only saw the young man raising the weapon in his hand and rushing towards him quickly. Quick! Stop him quickly! Who can kill him for me? I will let my brother reward him again. After hearing the words of the brawny, these hundreds of Luhuns hesitated, but after thinking about the identity of the brawny brother, they raised their weapons and slew towards Yu Taifeng. The hundreds of local ruffians living in the first few districts of Rukongai, although they have faintly heard of Yhwach's fierce name, they have no qualms about the teenagers in front of them. For the reward in the mouth of the strong man, they can't care so much now. After all, the brawny's brother is a Shinigami. Even if he took out something casually, it could make them happy for a long time. Read more at mtlarchive.com. Mao Yhwach frowned slightly when she saw Yu Taifeng drew her sword and rushed towards the crowd. Later, she also picked up the truncated sword that had just been thrown on the ground, and followed Yu Taifeng to kill it. Although in her eyes, it didn't take much effort to kill these awful. However, since the other party came to the door, she would definitely not be polite. What's more, that leader dared to ridicule himself like that. A few seconds later, one after another screams sounded one after another. The people who were still murderous just now are about to regret their intestines. They couldn't imagine that they would provoke these two killing gods. The sealed state waving in Yu Taifeng's hand is like a sickle for mowing at the moment. In contrast, Yu Taifeng was considered sweet in battle. On the other hand, Yhwach's fighting style is somewhat unscrupulous. Now she fell silent again to the slaughter, the broken sword in her hand kept harvesting the enemies in front of her. She quickly changed her figure, and the broken sword waving in her hand brought bloodlines one after another. This originally quiet area is now like a purgatory on earth. Stumps and broken arms and scarlet blood can be seen everywhere on the ground. The screams and the strong smell of blood made the onlookers who tried to get closer to this place to stop one after another. After a period of massacre without any suspense, a mutilated corpse was lying on the ground. "Don't kill me. My brother is Shinigami. Forgive me. Forgive me." The brawny man who led the crowd at the beginning knelt down on the ground begging for mercy in horror. He couldn't think that his long-planned conspiracy would end in this way. At this moment, he just wants to leave this ghost place quickly. However, just as he was about to beg for mercy again, he only saw a sharp sword light flying towards him. He looked at the young man swinging the sword in front of him with an unbelievable look. In the next second, he became a corpse with a separated head. Mao Yhwach, who had entered the bloodthirsty state, glared at Yu Taifeng, who shot faster than herself, and wanted to say something. "Don't get excited, I never thought about helping you. This guy's attitude made me a little unhappy, so I killed it easily. Don't think too much," Yu Taifeng said softly, while looking at the hundreds of boxes exploded on the ground, a burst of joy in his heart. Mao Yhwach looked at the seemingly harmless young man before her, and said with an unprecedented smile, "Now it seems that we are really the same kind of people. You are really good. It's really an honor for me to be able to comment on me like this, by Wozahana." Yu Taifeng also responded with a smile. Mao Yhwach glanced at Yu Taifeng with complicated eyes, and then asked somewhat curiously, "You are already qualified to be my opponent, what is your name?" No wonder Yhwach would ask this, because although the two have fought twice, she still doesn't know what the other party's name is. Yu Taifeng. "That's it, when I look for you next time, that's when you are defeated." After Wozahana dropped a sentence, she turned around and left. Seeing the fading shadow, Yu Taifeng smiled slightly and turned his gaze back to the hundreds of boxes that had fallen. Although they are all trash fish, the number is barely reasonable. Yu Taifeng muttered to himself, while getting busy. After a busy period, Yu Taifeng collected a wave of benefits again in the boxes, where many corpses had fallen. After summarizing and categorizing the trophies he had just obtained, he was slightly surprised. Because, in the box dropped by the leader, Yu Taifeng unexpectedly picked up what he dreamed of. Episode 14, Learn from One Another. After a busy period, Yu Taifeng acquired a considerable amount of Ryatsu. Although, his strength and the number of Ryatsu acquired before have already fallen into a bottleneck state. However, after playing against Yhwach several times, his strength has also increased by leaps and bounds in recent times. Therefore, being able to get a lot of Ryatsu again made Yu Taifeng quite satisfied. Of course, this sort of natural thing is also reasonable. What surprised Yu Taifeng most was that he picked up Kido from the leader who had personally killed him. After indifferently glanced at the corpse on the ground, Yu Taifeng directly took all the trophies obtained into the system backpack. Then he turned and left, leaving only a messy scene. After returning to his residence, he opened the system interface and started to check it. The strongest box picking system. Host, Yu Taifeng. Age, 17. Lineage, Human Soul, Quincy. Ryatsu, 638. Special skills, Omniscience and Omnipotence. Kendo, Mastery. White Hits, Mastery. Shuanpa, None. Kido, 1 of Heido, Chong. After closing the system interface, Yu Taifeng began to think seriously. Although, the Kido he obtained this time is only one of the most basic Heido among many Kido. However, this can also be regarded as a new research direction for him. After gathering all Ryatsu on his body on the fingertips of his right hand, after Yu Taifeng gave a soft drink, a slender linear air current burst out from his fingers. Rumble. After hitting the ground, the air current representing one of the Kido Chong caused a burst of dust in the entire backyard. After the dust and smoke dissipated, a small hole the size of a fist appeared on the ground that had just hit. Read more at mtlarchive.com. Although the destructive power of this Kido was somewhat unsatisfactory, Yu Taifeng did not rush to open the all-knowing almighty, and according to the actions just now, it was brewing again. A burst of invisible Ryatsu wrapped around the fingertips of his right hand. After a while of analysis, a Mingwu smile appeared on Yu Taifeng's face. Heido is one of the many Kido that is dedicated to attacking and killing. The most fundamental principle is to use the releaser itself as a medium to transform and sort Ryatsu in a unique way, and to induce a skill released by the souls around itself. Among the many Kido, whether it is Heido, Bakudo, or Kaido, the higher the ranking, the lower the power and effect. On the contrary, the greater the power and effect. Moreover, each kind of Kido has shown power and effect in actual combat. It also varies according to the releaser's Ryatsu level and his proficiency with Kido. Under the analysis of all-knowing and all-powerful, Yu Taifeng also sees through the essence of one of Heido Chong at this moment. As the most basic Heido, the principle of Chong is actually very simple. It just simply gathers Ryatsu at the fingertips and provokes the surrounding spirits to launch them. Thinking of this, Yu Taifeng probably figured out why he could pick up this skill from the box that Lu Hun dropped. Because, as long as Lu Hun who has some training skills, as long as his Ryatsu level reaches a certain level, after many trainings, he can master it naturally. As for the other Kido-S powers that resemble elements such as lightning and flame, Yu Taifeng also has a faint suspicion in his mind. As early as the last time he studied the breath of all things, he discovered a very important clue. That is, the composition of all things in the entire Soul Society is closely related to the Lingzi. Lingzi with different attributes, after a special arrangement, constitutes everything in the Soul Society. As small as the dust that ordinary people can hardly detect, as large as the mountains and lakes in the Soul Society, all these are the result of various arrangements of spiritual suns. Thinking of this, Yu Taifeng immediately put his inner thoughts into practice. All-knowing and almighty is like a supercomputer, which is running at a fast speed. Yu Taifeng also slowly entered a state of sentiment at this moment, and began to experience the spiritual sun around him with his heart. After a few minutes of comprehension, he finally felt a faint spiritual sun of thunder and lightning. In this way, Yu Taifeng made a grasping movement with his bare hands, and a spiritual child with lightning attributes was like tiny grains of rice, which he held tightly in his hand. He is familiar with the sorting method of one of Heido Chong and applied it to the lightning attribute Lingzi that he caught just now. At this moment, the thunderbolt spirit he held tightly in his hand seemed to have vitality, and began to move quickly from his palm to his fingertips. After controlling Ryatsu to a certain degree of fit, Yu Taifeng continued to use his right hand to absorb the lightning Lingzi around him. When those Lingzi finally reached saturation, he directly used the technique of one of Heido Chong just released. Yu Taifeng's right hand is wrapped in layers of lightning Lingzi, as if wearing a glove interwoven with lightning. In the end, he will release the Ryatsu, merge with the Rizi in his hand, and directly hit the mixture of the two quickly. A blue lightning made a huge, cracking sound, and burst out from Yu Taifeng's hands in an instant. When the lightning finally landed on the ground, there was a huge movement. The sound of thunder on a sunny day echoed in Yu Taifeng's ears, showing the immense power of that lightning. With the disappearance of this lightning, the area on the ground that had just been hit directly turned into black scorched earth. If you can take in more lightning spirits and pour all the Ryatsu into it, the power should change geometrically. Yu Taifeng thoughtfully analyzed it in his mind. After the test was successful, he couldn't help but feel happy. This shows that he is the first to see the way for Kido. In the next few days, Yu Taifeng spent most of his time training in swordsmanship and Kido. He also understands more and more about the sealed state in his hands. And he also used one of Heido Chong as the blueprint, and successfully tested the Chong of the different element Lingzi attributes. After working hard for a few days, Yu Taifeng went to and fro several Rukongai nearby, and personally killed many murderers. With the long-term high-intensity training, coupled with the convenience of the box-picking system, Yu Taifeng's Ryatsu level has also been greatly improved. On this day, Yu Taifeng was about to go out to hunting. A Shinigami dressed in a death tyrant, with a cold expression on his face, pulled out the Zanpakuto from his hand and quickly attacked him. Episode 15, Revenge. A murderous Ryatsu burst out of the stranger Shinigami. At this moment, he clasped Zanpakuto in his hand and quickly killed Yu Taifeng. Due to the fact that the opponent was extremely angry, Ryatsu erupted from his body was already a little confused. Yu Taifeng, who has experienced many battles, did not show any panic after feeling the opponent's Ryatsu. Because, he has already judged from the murderous Ryatsu that the opponent's Ryatsu level is no different from his own. Thinking about it, Yu Taifeng would not stand dry and stupid. With a serious face, he looked at the enemy that was fast approaching not far away, and turned on Omniscience and Omnipotence to judge the opponent's movement trajectory. The reason why Yu Taifeng is so cautious is not because he is afraid of the other party. In his opinion, even opponents whose strength is almost the same as his own should be treated with all their strength. He didn't want to roll over inexplicably just because he underestimated the enemy. Between the lightning and the fire, the stranger Shinigami has already killed Yu Taifeng. He looked at the enemy in front of him angrily, and after releasing all Ryatsu, he slammed Zanpakuto in his hand. Boom. A crisp voice suddenly appeared, and Yu Taifeng raised the sealed state with one hand while the stranger Shinigami swung the sword to resist the opponent's attack. After Yu Taifeng's seemingly fierce offensive was easily resolved by Yu Taifeng, he also reconsidered the enemy in front of him. The stranger Shinigami stared at Yu Taifeng bitterly at this time, with an expression on his face that he couldn't wait to swallow him alive. Do you know who I am? Do you know who you killed? The unfamiliar Shinigami first broke the calm on the court and asked in a cold tone. I don't know, I'm not interested in knowing. After all, too many people died in my hands. Yu Taifeng replied calmly. Today, I want to use your blood to pay tribute to the dead soul of my brother. The stranger Shinigami yelled and then killed Yu Taifeng again. At this moment, he wanted to vent all the anger in his heart. Yu Taifeng was not only the murderer who killed his younger brother, but more importantly, he dared to show a disdainful attitude towards himself. As Shinigami, he has not been so despised in Rakangai for a long time. Read more at mtlarchive.com. Yu Taifeng didn't have any idle time to guess the other party's thoughts. He has faintly guessed the identity and purpose of the other party from the conversation just now. According to the opponent's Ryatsu level, Yu Taifeng can clearly feel each other's strength. Compared to the enemy who came quickly in front of him, his Ryatsu level was more than one grade different from Yhwach. Yu Taifeng was already in his heart and sentenced the stranger Shinigami to death. However, this is the first time to fight Shinigami after passing through. He is very much looking forward to it. Can the other party let himself see some new tricks? After a few short matches, Yu Taifeng couldn't help but feel disappointed from the bottom of his heart. Because the Shinigami who came here to seek revenge is so weak that he was unexpected. Whether it is his attack method or kendo skills, Yu Taifeng feels a kind of toddler. The reason why the guy in front of me was able to become Shinigami seems to be just that his Ryatsu level is passable. Yu Taifeng, who treats every battle as learning and training, is undoubtedly a little disappointed. After pouring all Ryatsu in his body into the sealed state, he is also ready to end this meaningless battle. After all, he has no time to play house with the guy in front of him. Yu Taifeng weighed the sealed state in his hand, seeing that he was about to cut to the enemy's vitals. At this moment, the sudden change occurred. The 8th of Bakudo. Reprimand. An angry shout with a trembling sound came from Shinigami's vengeance. At this moment, a light blue spiritual shield appeared on his right arm. The sealed state that Yu Taifeng waved was impartially cut on this shield. Although Revenge Shinigami is now pale as paper, and was repelled by Yu Taifeng more than 10 meters away. But somehow he also relied on Kido, who had just used it, and barely withstood the fatal blow from Yu Taifeng. Interesting. Although Yu Taifeng was slightly admired in his heart, but in order to prevent new accidents from appearing again, he also unreservedly released all the Ryatsu in his body, and gathered the surrounding spirits under his feet. Under the guidance of Ryatsu after a while, countless subtle souls were attracted to Yu Taifeng's feet quickly. When the soul under his feet reached the limit that he could mobilize at present, Yu Taifeng quickly waved the sealed state in his hand, and the whole figure looked like an illusory ghost, appearing behind the enemy from its original position in an instant. Shinigami felt fortunate when he came to seek revenge. He thought he was almost killed by the opponent. However, what made him somewhat unexpected was, just now, who was still wandering between life and death, he was able to make an exception to use Kido, who was used to defend him. Although, he now has a feeling of almost losing his strength. But at any rate, he survived and escaped. Just as he was about to let out some ruthless words and continue fighting, he only felt a shadow quickly passing by. In the next second, he opened his eyes wide and covered his neck tightly with his hands, and fell to the ground unwillingly. Ding! A box falling around the host is detected. Is the host turned on? The system prompt appeared in Yu Taifeng's mind. After hearing this prompt, Yu Taifeng turned and looked at the corpse a few meters away, while responding to the system, turn it on. Episode 16, Kido Transformation, Ding. Congratulations to the host for acquiring Ryatsu 136. Ding. Congratulations to the host for getting the Battle Sword X1. Ding. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Bakudo's 8th Rebuke. Ding. Congratulations to the host for getting the Deathmaster outfit X1. Ding. After a series of tones, Yu Taifeng also felt the changes in Ryatsu. Although the Shinigami he killed by himself, it seemed that he was just an ordinary Shinigami team member. But he also had to sigh at the moment. The loot dropped after killing Shinigami is really too rich. If you can kill a Shinigami on your own, such as Yamamoto Genryūsai's level of Shinigami, I am afraid that what you drop will directly make you soar into the sky. This also gave Yu Taifeng an urge to hunt Shinigami. However, forget it after thinking about it. After all, if he really hunts Shinigami as prey, it is likely to attract the siege of Shinigami in Surpassing. It even attracted the attention of some powerful people. Now he is still very weak after all, completely incapable of being an enemy of Surpassing. After discarding some of the dropped scrap, he directly put on the Death Tyrant outfit he had just obtained. What Yu Taifeng didn't expect was that the Death Master costume could change the size at will according to the user's figure. And his own feelings to the spirits around him have become clearer. A random Death Tyrant outfit is so advanced. It's no wonder that Shadera Senjumaru, who invented the Death Tyrant, could become one of the captains of the Zero Division. The battle just ended not only dropped Ryatsu, but also Zanpakuto. In addition, the dropped Bakudo no 8 rebuke also surprised Yu Taifeng. Compared with the one of Heido Chong obtained not long ago, the Bakudo obtained this time also gave him a new research direction. In the next few days, Yu Taifeng used Omniscience and Omnipotence to analyze and decipher the acquired Kido. After finally getting the results to his satisfaction, he also experimented in the backyard of his residence. Full coverage. Reprimand. Following Yu Taifeng's soft drink, a pair of light blue Lingzi armor enveloped him. After feeling the Lingzi armor that completely covered his body, he smiled and lifted the control of the Lingzi around his body. The Lingzi armor that had just wrapped him also slowly disappeared. This is a defensive method developed by Yu Taifeng based on the 8 rebuke of Bakudo in recent days. Read more at mtlarchive.com. Compared with the one-sided defensive power of Bakudo number 8, mobilizing the spirits around him to form armor can protect himself well. However, Yu Taifeng did not stop in the slightest, but after a short adjustment, he carried out a new experiment again. This time, according to the principle of one of the Heido Chong, he used Ryatsu to reversely suck the Ryatsu into his hand. I saw the sealed state that was originally placed on the ground, followed by the spirit of the reaction force, and quickly flew into his hands. Well, the effect is not bad. Next, try this again. Yu Taifeng was thinking about it in his heart, while continuing to make new experiments. 6 parties scolded. After a soft sip, he used 8 of Bakudo's rebuke 6 times in a row. Immediately afterwards, he used the 6 Kido that he had just used as quickly as possible, according to the principle of full coverage rebuke. At this time, a 6-sided cube, composed of Lingzi, trapped a small and medium bird in the air. The little bird obviously didn't know what was happening around him. When it was trapped, it could only keep trying to fly out of the confined space where it was imprisoned. However, no matter how this little bird tried, it was still trapped in the light blue Lingzi cube. The reason is that it banged its head bang, and it didn't help. Condensation. After Yu Taifeng calmly uttered a word, the light blue cube that originally imprisoned the bird quickly began to shrink. And, it shrank to the extreme in an instant. The little bird who hadn't figured out the situation was directly crushed into a cloud of blood mist by the quickly gathered souls. It's done. Yu Taifeng looked at the blood mist appearing in the air, and a smile appeared on his calm face. After all, transforming the defensive Kido into a means of attack is very fulfilling. The successful Yu Taifeng was in a good mood. After pinning the sealed state to his waist, he took out the previously picked Zanpakuto from the system backpack and prepared to start new research. Yu Taifeng. Come out. At this time, Yhwach's voice came in from outside the wall of the backyard. After putting Zanpakuto away, Yu Taifeng immediately opened the small door in the backyard. What surprised Yu Taifeng was that Ryatsu, who hadn't seen Yhwach in a few days, improved his level by a big margin. This could not help but made him a little jealous. Although I have the system and the omnipotent, every increase in strength requires a lot of learning and experimentation. But as a combat genius, Yhwach only needs to fight to improve her strength. However, this just made Yu Taifeng feel a little sigh. After all, as a traverser, his eyes and insights are not comparable to anyone in Shinigami's world. Girl Ma Yhwach, long time no see. Yu Taifeng greeted with a smile. Accept the move. Mao Yhwach entered the state directly, and struck quickly with a sweet voice. Yu Taifeng shook his head helplessly, then pulled out his sealed state and greeted him. After a short confrontation, Yu Taifeng and Yhwach were both shaken back more than 10 meters because of the opponent's attack. Looking at the confident Yhwach not far away, Yu Taifeng was a little surprised. Because just after a short test, she found that Yhwach completely changed her fighting strategy this time. If we say that the previous few times Yhwach paid more attention to skill in the battle. So this time, she abandoned those fancy swordsmanship skills and directly poured all of her Ryatsu into the weapon in her hand. I really didn't expect that girl Mao Yhwach would be so direct this time. Yu Taifeng said in a soft voice, with a hint of approval in his eyes. I was too careless before. Because I have been fighting and analyzing for a period of time recently. I found that the level of Ryatsu on you is far lower than mine. Well, wanting to beat you is actually very simple. I just need to release all my Ryatsu directly and use the crushing power. After Winohana finished speaking, with a powerful Ryatsu, she struck again with a sword. After Yu Taifeng heard Mao Zhihua's words again, he was slightly moved. Unexpectedly, the other party found out so quickly the key to the problem. At this time, not far from the battlefield between the two figures standing in the dark are watching them carefully. Episode 17, Secret Transaction. While Yu Taifeng and Wazihua were fighting fiercely, the two figures standing in the dark were watching them carefully. How about Yamamoto? Isn't that guy good? Very good. But he killed Shinigami, a bald old man responded coldly. Hey. Can you not be so pedantic and poor? Ermea Wangyue looked at Yamamoto Genryūsai beside him and said helplessly, holding his forehead. Because he killed Shinigami. So he must die. Yamamoto was not moved by the opponent's ridicule, his eyes were full of killing intent. Isn't it just killing a team member of the lowest rank? As for letting you do it yourself? And that guy who died just happened to reach the minimum standard to become Shinigami. Wanyu continued to persuade him somewhat unwillingly. Even the lowest level Shinigami is ours. So this boy must die. As for that little girl, if she can pass my test, I can consider making her a Shinigami. Yamamoto replied calmly. Yamamoto. I asked someone to find out about the dead guy. It is said that before he became Shinigami, he was a famous rogue in Rakongai. Moreover, after he became Shinigami, he didn't get honest. Forget it, just tell me, how can you let that guy go? Wanyu looked at Yamamoto, who was not getting oil and salt in front of him, and finally said a little angry. It's not impossible to let him go, but the favor I owed you before has been wiped out. A sly light flashed in Yamamoto's eyes, and he turned to look aside Wanyu. Yamamoto. You treacherous fellow. It turns out that you had planned. After hearing Yamamoto's words, Wanyu realized that he was being tricked. Although he was a little helpless, he soon felt relieved after thinking of the magical power that the young man had mastered not far away. After all, such mysterious talents as teenagers are rare. If it weren't for the means of seeing the boy with his own eyes that day, he would have a feeling of cherishing his talents. Perhaps he is still leisurely in front of the salted fish in the Phoenix Palace. As a dignified sword god, you are actually willing to use your favor to protect a little guy who has nothing to do with you. Maybe there is something about him that can make our eyes shine. Yamamoto said calmly, turning his gaze back to where he was just now. At that time you will know. Wanyu said with a smug smile. At this moment, the battle between Yu Taifeng and Wazihua has also entered a white-hot stage. As Yunoka changed her strategy in advance, she chose to use the overwhelming Ryatsu as the main means of combat. Although this kind of head-to-head tactics did not achieve very obvious results, after two things, they can be regarded as inextricable. Read more at mtlarchive.com. Yu Taifeng used various techniques to cleverly resolve Wazihua's offensives. However, he knew very well in his heart that he wanted to beat the opponent now. I am afraid it would be a little difficult. The opponent released Ryatsu, who was much higher than himself, and continued to oppress himself. Although, Wazihua's actions will not cause any substantial harm to herself. However, Yu Taifeng felt a little helpless. Through this battle, he also understood that it was imminent to improve Ryatsu. Because, this is the Shinigami world after all, and any battle is ultimately a duel of Ryatsu. No matter how many skills he has, and some inventions that can surprise people. But the foundation of these conditions still needs the support of powerful Ryatsu. After a period of fighting, Yu Taifeng still came to a conclusion that neither side could do anything to each other. Therefore, he also decided to use his real strength to end this battle. 6 parties scolded. After avoiding a new round of attacks, Yu Taifeng slapped out the Kido he had just studied. I saw a cage made up of blue spirits, trapping Wazihua in it in an instant. The side door left. After seeing the dawn of victory, Yhwach shouted in disdain after being trapped. After pouring all Ryatsu in her body into her weapon, she held the sword in both hands and slashed to the spirit cage in front of her. Boom. After a loud noise, Wazihua was surprised to find out. Although he broke the opponent's strange trick, an inexplicable pressure was suddenly exerted on him. Condensation. As Yu Taifeng spoke again, Mao Zhihua only felt that she was stuck in a quagmire. Although this didn't cause any harm to myself, it restrained myself greatly. At this time, she felt that her usual quick movements had become somewhat dull. Wanyu and Yamamoto, who were watching the battle in the dark, all showed awe-inspiring expressions after seeing this scene. Strong people like them can easily feel the degree of Ryatsu on both sides of the war. Although the Ryatsu that Yu Taifeng exudes is not as good as Yuo no Hana, the various techniques used in the battle cannot help but let the two focus their attention. However, they know very well that this battle will eventually become a duel of Ryatsu. However, when Yu Taifeng used the Kido that they had never seen before, their eyes lit up involuntarily. How about Yamamoto? My vision is pretty good, right? Haha. Although Wang Yu's heart was also full of surprises, in order to be able to let his old friends suffer, he showed a triumphant expression and said happily, well, it's a good seed. Although Yamamoto was also slightly shocked, he quickly returned to his original serious expression, but a strange gaze flashed quickly in his eyes. The battle on the field continued when Yhwach used Ryatsu to dissipate the pressure on her body with difficulty, and again swung her sword towards Yu Taifeng. Yu Taifeng looked at the Yhwach rushing towards him again, and quickly gathered the spirits of various attributes around him in the palm of his hand through the mobilization of Ryatsu. Lei Chong. He gave a soft yell, blasting out the violent thunder and lightning energy that was rolling in his hand. At this moment, a beam of light that was full of thunder and lightning attributes struck in the direction of Mao Yhwach at a terrifying speed. This trick Lei Chong is a new trick invented by Yu Taifeng based on one of Heido Chong. This is also one of his more satisfying masterpieces in the continuous experiments over the past few days. Yhwach looked at the light beam rushing towards her in shock, and was slightly stunned. When she reacted again, she hurriedly gathered all Ryatsu in front of her to resist the attack. Although she reacted extremely quickly and blocked part of the beam in front of her, she was still half a beat slower in the end. Seeing that the remaining light beam was about to rush towards her door, a suffocatingly powerful Ryatsu suddenly appeared not far away. Episode 18, The Test of Yamamoto's Heavy Country. The Lei Chong that Yu Taifeng had just used was about to hit Mao Yhwach's face. However, a suffocating Ryatsu appeared suddenly. The emergence of Ryatsu not only shook the Thunder Chong in front of Yhwach's eyes. Yu Taifeng and Mao Yhwach, who were still in battle, were overthrown directly to the ground. At this moment, they all fell to the ground under the pressure of this powerful Ryatsu. Both Yu Taifeng and Yhwach looked at the source of Ryatsu, a burly old man. The old man wearing a black death tyrant suit and wearing a white haori appeared indifferently not far from the two. A middle-aged man with black curly hair and wearing the same clothes walked side by side with him. The curly-haired man was not as serious as the old man, but looked at Yu Taifeng with a playful look, with a bright smile on his face. Little brother, I didn't expect us to meet again so soon. Haha. Although Yhwach didn't know who came, she could guess from the other party's clothes. Yu Taifeng is completely in another state of mind now, because he is very clear about the identities of the two. And not long ago, he pitted one of them sturdily. Oh. The battle just now was a feast for the eyes. I haven't seen such a wonderful battle in a long time. Wang Yu still looked like he was laughing and joking, and began to comment to himself. When he wanted to continue to say something, he saw Yamamoto tilting his head and looking at him, then he curled his lips and showed a helpless expression. We must be clear in your hearts as well as our intentions, so I won't repeat them. One is the most notorious evil in Rukongai. One is the murderer who killed Shinigami. The old man must kill you personally today. So that those guys with ulterior motives can see what the end is all about. Snort. Yamamoto cleared his throat and said slowly in a low voice. At this time, Yamamoto exuded shocking aura, and his murderous aura broke out from him instantly. Although Yu Taifeng and Yhwach were mentally prepared, they couldn't help but feel a little excited after hearing Yamamoto's words. After all, it's better to die than to live. No one wants to die like this casually. Hey. Yamamoto. You promised me to let him go. How do you say it doesn't count now? Wang Yu said excitedly in front of him after hearing Yamamoto's words. After Yu Taifeng and Mao Yhwach heard what Wang Yu said, they couldn't help being speechless for a while. Although they heard the truth, they understood that Yamamoto was acting. However, the murderous aura just exuded from Yamamoto was truly felt by the two. Wang Yu. You. Yamamoto looked at Wang Yu, who stood in front of him, feeling helpless. However, he adjusted quickly, cleared his throat and then said, the old man thinks that you are a rare talent for both of you, so I decided to give you a chance. Use your strongest strength to attack me. As long as I feel satisfied, you can live. Read more at mtlarchive.com. Come on together. Let's start. Yu Taifeng and Yhwach looked at each other after hearing Yamamoto's words, and they also had their own plans in their hearts. But this is the end of the matter, and they are unavoidable and can only do what the other party says. Yu Taifeng held tightly the sealed state in his hand and began to brew. And Yhwach, who was in the same situation as him, was now dignified and shook hands with the weapon, putting on a posture ready to attack. Come on. Let the old man see how capable you are. Yamamoto yelled angrily as he looked at the two not far away. Although, he only uses a relatively small portion of Ryatsu now. But even so, Yu Taifeng and Yhwach feel a sense of breathlessness. Yu Taifeng looked at Yamamoto not far away, quickly controlled Lingzi under his feet, and moved quickly toward the opponent's position. Under the impact of this Ryatsu, he could make a movement similar to Shuunpa, but at this moment it only increased his speed slightly. Yhwach looked at Yu Taifeng, who had already rushed out, and rushed along behind him. However, her speed is obviously much slower than Yu Taifeng. With the analysis of omniscience and omnipotence and the blessing of all things breathe, Yu Taifeng only feels that Yamamoto is like a mountain that does not move. But this also inspired his eagerness in disguise. He wants to see how terrifying Yamamoto is now. A few seconds later, Yu Taifeng and Yhwach arrived in front of Yamamoto, one after another. They tried their best to chop their weapons at Yamamoto. Boom boom. A burst of metal collision sounded from Yamamoto's body. Yu Taifeng and Yhwach's full blow not only did not cause him damage, but was shocked by a reaction force dozens of meters away. After a short contact, Yu Taifeng finally understood why Yamamoto was called the strongest Shinigami. Because Rao has omniscience and omnipotence and all things breathing, and he can't see any flaws in Yamamoto. But he was relieved immediately. After all, no matter how hard he tried now, it was impossible to cause any harm to Yamamoto. It's better to use Yamamoto as a wooden stake with anti-injury effect and use all your strength. After all, this is Yamamoto's test of them, and it must be an examination of their potential. 6 parties scolded. Yu Taifeng rushed to Yamamoto again, and when he was about to approach him, suddenly he freed up a hand and pointed it in the direction Yamamoto was. He used all the Ryatsu in his body to mobilize the spirits around him in an attempt to influence Yamamoto. A cage made up of blue spirits envelopes Yamamoto as a whole. However, because of Yamamoto's super strong Ryatsu, the cage of blue spirits seemed to collapse at any time. After feeling the cage trapped in it, Yamamoto shattered the entire spirit cage with a light drink. Are you capable of this? Yamamoto said calmly. Winohana also came to Yamamoto at this time. She poured all the Ryatsu into the weapon, and then slammed it at the target. Yamamoto looked at the weapon swinging at him indifferently, without a trace of expression on his face. At this moment, Yhwach suddenly changed her body shape, twisting her body and skipping Yamamoto's front at a strange angle, and came behind him. Lei Chong. Fire. Bing Chong. Sha Chong. Wind. 6 parties scolded. Hey! Yu Taifeng directly threw the sealed state into the air, and after hitting 6 spirits with different attributes, one after another, they directly merged the 6 spirits. I saw a 5-color light beam, flying quickly in the direction of Yamamoto. The trick Yu Taifeng just used, but his most satisfying masterpiece, not long ago. At that time, after analyzing with all-knowing and all-powerful, he used 6-party rebuke as a cage to imprison the souls of different attributes. Although he could not yet integrate the spirits of different attributes, but using this technique, he can also gather them. Winohana again swung the sword at the back of Yamamoto's neck, trying to interfere with him. However, Yamamoto didn't even turn his head back, letting Wazihana's sword attack him. Yamamoto looked at the 5-color light beams flying towards him, and his original face was a little surprised at this moment. Because this is the first time he has seen anyone who can fuse the basic Kido with different attributes. Yamamoto showed a slight approval in his eyes, and nodded slightly. However, because the strength of the two is too weak, Yamamoto did not care about their attacks. After all, in the face of absolute strength, any technique seems pale and weak. Break! After Yamamoto gave a soft drink, a stronger Ryatsu spewed out from his body and directly blew the two who attacked him. Yu Taifeng and Yhwach fell heavily to the ground, a little embarrassed, and slowly got up, ready to launch a new round of attacks. At this moment, the unsmiling Yamamoto showed a slightly relieved smile and said, "You are qualified." Episode 19, Happy Ending. When Yu Taifeng heard Yamamoto's words, he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Because, if you want to be a strong player in this world, you must enter Surpassing to learn. Getting Yamamoto's approval is also an opportunity for him to get in touch with Surpassing as soon as possible. Yamamoto. I have known you for so long, I didn't even know you would laugh. Seeing that Yamamoto's test was over, Namiya Wanyue joked. Yamamoto ignored Wanyue, who was smiling hippie, and he was looking at Yu Taifeng and Yhwach with a serious face. Then he said, "Since you have passed the test, then make your choice." Although Yu Taifeng knew Yamamoto's purpose in his heart, he still pretended to look at Yamamoto, who had just spoken in a daze. After experiencing a crushed battle, Yhwach looked at Yamamoto without knowing it at this time. Little guys. Introduce yourself. I am Namiya Wanyue. You can call me by name, or you can call me Sword God. As for this unsmiling old man, it is the famous Shinigami captain in Surpassing Yamamoto Genryūsai. You just call him Yamamoto's chief deputy captain. Very unexpected, right? Haha, Wanyue directly interrupted Yamamoto next to him, and started the introduction familiarly. Yu Taifeng naturally knows who these two are, but he hides his emotions well and pretends to be surprised. After hearing Wanyue's introduction, Yhwach, who was calm on weekdays. Although she was shocked, she soon hid her expression. Little guys. Don't be nervous. Don't look at this old guy's serious face, in fact, he is very short-sighted. In his heart, he hopes that you can become Shinigami. Haha. Wang Yu saw the expressions of the two of them in his eyes, and said again, as if talking. Yamamoto turned his head and glanced at Wang Yu before continuing to speak. Since you have passed the old man's test, now you have two options. Or follow us back to Suryaidai to study and become Shinigami. Either keep the status quo and continue to live in Rakongai. Yu Taifeng had already guessed that Yamamoto would say something similar, and he would inevitably choose to study in Suryaidai. However, Yhwach said in a surprisingly soft voice, if I become Shinigami, does it mean that I can't fight at will? Yu Taifeng was not surprised by what Yhwach said just now. Read more at mtlarchive.com, because he knows that Unohana is inevitable for Shinigami, otherwise the concept of Kenpachi would not be born. However, when Yamamoto and Wang Yu heard Yhwach's doubts, both frowned slightly and looked at the girl in front of them. From the day Shinigami was born, he has been responsible for maintaining the balance of this world. Blindly silent in the fight will only make your heart be blinded by the killing. Although you have passed the test of the old man, this does not mean that the old man will continue to let you do whatever you want. Snort. The hot-tempered Yamamoto, after hearing Yoka's remarks, said a little angrily. After Wang Yu glanced at Yamamoto secretly, he looked helplessly at Yhwach and said, "You must seize this opportunity. The old man Yamamoto is looking forward to your joining. As for you, little girl, your hostility is simply too heavy. After you become Shinigami, I will introduce you to someone whose Kido should make some changes for you. And you? Brat. I didn't forget that you lied to me." Humph. On the surface, Wang Yu's words were meant for Mao Yhwach, but after hearing the last words, Yu Taifeng also understood his thoughts. The dignified sword god has already said this. If she and Yhwach still don't appreciate it, I'm afraid things will not be that simple. Moreover, he really pitied Wang Yu. After a short time of contact, Yu Taifeng felt that he was a reliable person. Whether it is his casual personality or unruly style of doing things, Yu Taifeng has a new understanding of the sword god in front of him. After a period of observation, Yu Taifeng also found that it was indeed as Wang Yu said. The current old man Yamamoto seems to be quite hot-tempered. Yu Taifeng wouldn't be so stupid that he touched their mold, otherwise he must be the one who suffers. Thinking of this, his eyes were full of firmness and said, "Thank you Lord Sword God and Lord Captain for your love. I am willing to follow you into Suryaidai, and I am willing to become a Shinigami, ha ha ha. This is really great." Wang Yu said happily, put his arm on Yamamoto's shoulder casually, and raised his eyebrows. In fact, after hearing Yhwach's words, Wang Yu's heart was still a little nervous, but he was very clear about the temper of Yamamoto on the side. If these two little guys make Yamamoto angry because they don't know how to promote, I'm afraid this matter will not end well. But he is very clear that Yamamoto is still very optimistic about these two from the bottom of his heart. Otherwise, with Yamamoto's straightforward character, he would not agree to himself so readily and let the boy in front of him go. When Yu Taifeng made a choice, Mao Yhwach also pondered for a long time, and then said in a positive tone, "As long as I can become stronger, I don't mind entering Suryaidai with you." Yamamoto, who had been silent for a long time, nodded in satisfaction after hearing the replies of the two. "Since you are willing to become Shinigami, then come here today." Ha ha ha. Happy to everyone. Happy to everyone. Yamamoto, don't be strained. I guess you are already secretly happy in your heart. Ha ha. Wang Yu felt happy from the bottom of his heart, because the two newly promoted colleagues in front of him made him full of curiosity. Yamamoto cast a glance at Wang Yu, who was smiling, and moved his arm on his shoulder away with his hand, before turning around and leaving. Wang Yu looked at the back of Yamamoto's quick departure, and couldn't bear the curiosity anymore, and Shuunpa came directly in front of Yu Taifeng and Yhwach. He looked at the two people in front of him with interest, and asked, "Little guys, I haven't known your names after having known you for so long." "Master Sword God, my name is Yu Taifeng, please take care of me in the future." The flower of Mao. After hearing the answers of the two, Wang Yu showed a bright smile. Immediately after using Shuunpa again, he rushed in the direction where Yamamoto had left. "Little guys, someone will come here to pick you up at noon tomorrow, so enjoy your last free time." Haha. Hey. Yamamoto. Wait for me. Although Wang Yu had left quickly, his voice came to Yu Taifeng and Mao Yhwach's ears. The next day, a Shinigami who was ordered to meet the two led Yu Taifeng and Yhwach into Suryaidai from the White Road in the west. Episode 20, Doubts of the God of Swords. Because of the peculiarities of Yu Taifeng and Yhwach's identities, so they skipped the entrance test of the Spiritual Arts Academy and received their school uniforms directly. After half a day of familiarity, Yu Taifeng and Yhwach, who were wearing school uniforms, also came to start their student careers. It may be the reason why the above said hello, Yu Taifeng did not go with the students of the same period to select his own sealed state in the Kazama of the Spiritual Arts Academy. Yu Taifeng, who was happy and leisurely, began to get acquainted with the surrounding environment in a leisurely manner. Before he knew it, Yu Taifeng had walked out of the scope of the Spiritual Arts Academy and came to a lively street nearby. At this moment, a familiar voice came from behind Yu Taifeng. Hey hey hey! Little guy! Where are you going? The visitor is no one else, but the Ermiwa Wanyue that Yu Taifeng has just met a day ago. At this moment, he was looking at Yu Taifeng with a smile on his face, and nodded very satisfied. It turned out to be Lord Sword God. Why are you here? Yu Taifeng also said with a smile. It's so boring to be alone in the Phoenix Palace, so I just went out and strolled around. It's a coincidence that I didn't expect to meet you here. Haha, Wang Yu looked at the boy in front of him, and the smile on his face became thicker. Yu Taifeng would not believe that he was able to encounter Wang Yu because of a coincidence. After all, his first contact with Wang Yu was full of drama. At this time, he also began to think in his heart. Because I already had the sealed state in my hands, I didn't go to the Shama with the colleges of the same period. Behind this seemingly inadvertent, there must be a shadow of Wang Yu's participation. When Wang Yu came here to encounter with himself, he must be looking for something important with him. The thing that can make the dignified sword god put down his body is probably also very important to him. Little guy, I wonder if you are interested in going to my Phoenix Palace. Wang Yu didn't mean anything, but directly explained his intentions. It is my honor to be able to visit the residence of Lord Blade God. Yu Taifeng replied very simply. Haha. It's really great. Then let's go. After receiving the affirmative answer, Wang Yu patted Yu Taifeng on the shoulder, and then led him towards the Phoenix Palace. Half an hour later, under the leadership of Wang Yu, Yu Taifeng came to the front of the Phoenix Palace. How is it? My Phoenix Palace looks pretty good, right? Haha. Wang Yu said to Yu Taifeng with a bit of an A. But it's no wonder that Wang Yu is like this, because the architectural style of the Phoenix Palace in front of him is almost meaningless to describe it as magnificent. Read more at mtlarchive.com. Come here. Today I must show you a good tour. It's been a long time since there have been new guests here. As the host, Wang Yu led Yu Taifeng around the Phoenix Palace, while introducing various things in the Phoenix Palace. After a period of visit, Yu Taifeng discovered a very important problem. That is, there are no anthropomorphic Zanpakuto in the current Phoenix Palace. But when he thought about the current timeline, he was relieved. After all, now, but 1,000 years before the story of Shinigami began, Wang Yu didn't anthropomorphize some Zanpakuto, which can be regarded as the past. After all, 1,000 years of time is enough for many things to happen. After Wang Yu introduced the inside and outside of the Phoenix Hall, he led Yu Taifeng to the hall of the Phoenix Hall. At this time, Wang Yu, who was sitting in the main seat, looked at Yu Taifeng again with interest, and then he seemed to stop talking. Wang Yu's performance was seen by Yu Taifeng, and he just responded with a faint smile at the beginning. However, Wang Yu, who was sitting on the Lord's seat, looked at Yu Taifeng without saying a word, which really made him feel a little hairy. After all, being a normal person, being stared at by another person with that indescribable look, will definitely feel a response. Master Blade God, thank you very much for your hospitality, just tell me if you have anything to do. You keep staring at me like this, it makes me feel a little weird. Yu Taifeng took the lead in breaking the silence on the court, and said with some embarrassment. Haha. Little guy. In fact, inviting you here, there is indeed one thing that needs your help. But I think you probably guessed it too? Wang Yu raised an eyebrow at Yu Taifeng, who was sitting not far away, and then said. Is it because of that branch? In fact, Yu Taifeng had the answer in his mind just now. Actually, it's a coincidence that I went to the black market in the Zaraki district a while ago, because I was bored here. However, that place is not as interesting as the legend. Unexpectedly, your appearance made me see something different. So. Wang Yu briefly explained the ins and outs of the matter, and said as he looked at Yu Taifeng expectantly. So you are more curious, why can I cut the iron sword with a branch, right? Yu Taifeng replied softly. Yes, yes. I don't know how you did it. Wang Yu stood up excitedly after hearing the key to the matter. In fact, it's like this. Yu Taifeng smiled slightly and began to explain the theory of all things breathing to Wang Yu in detail. However, in the process of explaining, Yu Taifeng didn't mention the system and the omnipotent thing. After all, this is a secret belonging to him alone, and he must not let anyone know it. 10 minutes later, Wang Yu's face was full of shock. He looked at Yu Taifeng with the look of a monster, and said with a serious face, it turns out to be like this. It's incredible. Unexpectedly, at a young age, you can walk your own way. I don't think it will be long before you will become famous. Master Sword God is absurd. This is just something I found out accidentally, I can only say that my luck is better. Yu Taifeng responded with a smile. At this moment, Wang Yu felt that he had an urge to vomit blood. This is simply too modest. Can you still chat happily? But when Wang Yu changed his mind, he was relieved. Every genius has his own personality, not to mention the enchanting Yu Taifeng. Besides, after several contacts with Yu Taifeng, Wang Yu still admires each other very much from the bottom of his heart. Although, Yu Taifeng's current strength is still very weak. However, he thinks of his unconstrained fighting style and the amazing discovery of all things breathe. Wang Yu believes that with time, Yu Taifeng will surely become a strong man who is not inferior to him. Now that the doubts in his heart have been answered, Wang Yu didn't ask any more questions. After all, which genius didn't have some secrets of his own? P.S. There is a bug here, I hope you readers will understand. The timeline for the beginning of the book is 1,000 years before the beginning of the Shinigami plot. Due to some problems with the information that the younger brother consulted early, the setting thrown out in the second episode is not Spiritual Arts Academy. When I checked relevant information today, I found that there was a Spiritual Arts Academy thousands of years before the beginning of the Shinigami plot. In this episode, the protagonist and Mao Yhwach became students of the Spiritual Arts Academy, which is indeed inconsistent. Here, the little brother said from the heart, I'm sorry. I hope you readers can forgive me,